Hi, Erin.
Hello, Pam. How are you today?
I am well. How are you?
Good. It is beautiful outside here. So,
Yeah, here too. It's been very uncharacteristically mild for June so far with the heat.
oh, opposite here. So, anyway, so let's get down to our conversation today. I'll introduce us. I'm Erin, and this is Pam, and we are here today for some frank, fun, and focused discussion designed to help you move your business forward, one bite-sized action at a time. And you can join us every Tuesday morning for a new episode at 10:30 Eastern. Sometimes we're live, sometimes we're pre-recorded live, and this one will be one of those. So I'd like to introduce my co-host, Pam. And
Hi, everybody. I'm Pam, a remote work expert. My mission is to help you reimagine work to find joy. And I've created a community to help you do just that. I call it The Zone. And I'm excited to be joined here today with Erin, my co-host.
well, hello. I am a copywriter and a marketing strategist, and I work with high-powered action takers to get their messaging and strategy just right so that not only do you have the words to connect with people, but you have a plan for how to do it and how to do it effectively. And today we're talking about something that's near and dear to Pam's heart, workflows, and why developing systems and automations is so valuable regardless of what stage you are in your business, whether you're just starting out or whether you've been doing this for a while. And she's going to lead things off, and together we'll cover what they are, why you need workflows, and how to really build them from the get-go, from your first day in business. So I know you have strong beliefs.
I do. And, the first one is kind of the people need to understand what they are. I remember when I worked for a local county government and we purchased a constituent relationship management system from Lockheed Martin. And this woman came in who was a consultant and started talking to me about workflows. I thought she was speaking another language. I had no idea. She's like, you bought 3 workflows and blah, 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 blah. I had no idea what she was talking about. I didn't know what we were doing. I was so confused. It was over my head. And it wasn't that I had never heard the word before, but I didn't understand it in the context. And really, after asking a few questions, it became very clear. Oh, wait, you mean we're going to create systems and procedures for how we do things and then try to automate some of them. Okay. So for those of you listening and hear that buzzword workflow all the time and aren't quite sure what people mean by them, there are different ways that people approach it. But typically a workflow is one of your standard operating procedures or systems in your business. It's how you do something. And it's making sure that you do it efficiently and effectively. And sometimes it's manual and sometimes it's automated. Sometimes it's a hybrid. So one of the things that I think is really important is to understand why workflows are important in your business. And it's really a matter of a couple of things. First and foremost, knowing why you do the things that you do in your business and thinking them through. So for example, if you have a shop and you sell candles, when someone buys a candle, what happens next? Well, that's a workflow. You would then have your procedure in place for filling that order, shipping it. Do you send a little note? Is it wrapped in some type of tissue? Does the tissue have to be a brand color? Do you use a certain box? Where do you ship it from? UPS, USPS, all of those are workflows. They're procedures. When you can systematize how you do things in your business, it helps you with quality control and it also becomes efficiency. Another really simple workflow is just a simple meeting request. How do you respond when somebody wants to meet with you? Do you have an email back and forth chain that could go on for days of, I'm available at 2. Wait a minute. Nope, at 3. Oh, wait, we're talking about Tuesday. I meant Wednesday. What time zone are you in? Oh, no, I'm on Eastern. You're on.
That sounds like my idea of pain and suffering. Time zone math in and of itself is I don't know, it's harder than statistics or calculus ever was for me. And I am constantly battling it. So, and it's why I use this app for my calendar, which is a workflow too, which I've never really thought of it as a workflow, but it totally is. And it saves so much time and energy and time zone math, because it's never as simple as adding an hour or subtracting an hour. And I don't know why that is, but it just isn't.
Well, it's a couple of things. Sometimes those are like straight all the time, but when I lived in Rio, it changed at different parts of the year. So like right when I would get down the right time of day to call certain people in my life, it would shift back an hour or something, and we
Yeah.
would have to revisit it. So it's always
Well, and
changing.
then
People are busy, and sometimes we don't even know what date is where we're living. So like, how can you think about where somebody else is?
one of the things is I work with a lot of people in Europe, and so like they do daylight savings at different weeks than we do. So it's like for 2 weeks we are, 1 extra hour apart if we've gone one way or the other, and then the next 2 weeks we're like 2 extra hours apart or we're back to the same or
Right.
whatever it is. And it's just staying on top of that's insane. So anyway, this does not have to do with your conversation on workflows. I just always have opinions on
No,
it.
it's important. But the reason I raise this as an example is it's something simple that we do all the time. So I always suggest that you start with the things that you're doing repetitively and think about how to make them more systematic and efficient. So in the case of booking a meeting, there are like dozens of tools that are free even, and then some paid with extra features in them, that allow you to schedule meetings efficiently. And what's cool is that you block the time for different types of meetings. So, it could be that I block certain times to have virtual coffee chats, which I do. I block certain times to schedule guest interviews for another series that I do. I block certain times for my existing clients, and I can give different links to them because they're different lengths and I do them at different times of the day. It organizes my schedule in advance. I'm doing my thinking in advance, and then it's syncing with my calendar. So when I schedule an appointment for my children, or Aaron and I decide we're going to hop on and do one of our podcasts, and I block that in, it counteracts that other time slot so it won't double book me. It does the thinking so that you don't have to go back and forth. You know when you're working, what you're available to do. You can set parameters on, I only want to do 2 of these a day or 3 of these a month. And they get more and more robust. I could talk about this for a whole episode.
My favorite is how far out you can be when you're booking some of those.
Exactly. But the key is knowing the reason we have a workflow for booking our meetings is that it's something we do repetitively. We can think about it one time for the master setup and then regularly thereafter to make sure that our availability is up to date based on the season of whatever's going on in our life, and that our systems are still accurate for how we're running our business. But it's the same for a lot of things. It's why we have email templates. You don't want to rethink things, and you cut down on the errors that you make in communication. You save time, and you also come off much more professional because people see that you're consistently doing things in a certain way, and it doesn't mean you can't customize it. So, and I'll give you one more example, and then I'll take a breath so Aaron can chime in here too. But for this particular example, if I was going to be meeting with whoever you are watching right now because you wanted to get to know me better over virtual coffee, I might look at my calendar, which I do at the beginning of every week, and realize, wait a minute, my Thursday's light because I have a client who I usually meet with for 2 hours who's on vacation. So I can add extra time for virtual coffee that week, and I can change it. So I can still be flexible and have a manual component to my master automated calendar, but it gives me that flexibility with very little tweaking to adjust and pivot along the way. So workflows are systems and procedures. We want them in place because they save us time and they make us more efficient. And we build them very systematically, one step at a time, early, and revisit them often.
Yeah, and I think that's really important too. And I think what's really important, there's like so many things that my brain is firing off on all these tangents right now. And the first is that you can totally put workflows into place even if you've never done it before. And whether that thing is a service, whether that thing is a new coffee chat, whether it's a discovery call, whether it's a strategy session, whether it's a day rate, whatever that thing is, you can put a system into place for how you think it'll go. And it doesn't matter if it goes totally differently or you need to adjust it, because having an idea of what it is that you want to do and the process in mind for it is the starting off point. And then there's any number of variables that come up. Maybe your client has to reschedule for something. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you have to reschedule, or maybe you're like, hey, this plan that I have was a really good plan, but I'm seeing that I tend to do things differently. But when I think about workflows, I always think about them in terms of services. And I think it was you that told me, like, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago at this point, where I was like, I don't really have a process because all of my projects are different. And you were like, there's something consistent about everything that you do, even if the deliverables are different. And I'm like, you know what, you're right. And by putting that together, I was able to build a framework. And now that's a selling point when I'm on the phone with people.
Right.
So it's like, if I'm doing, it's like a website in a week is realistic. That's what it is. It usually ends up from A to Z taking a little bit longer just because of the research process that goes into it. But it's like, here's what happens at any given time. Here's what happens next. Here's how I handle this aspect. And then when you're ready to go, we do a quick live review, make sure we're all on the same page, and off you go, and it's done. And that's, I think, really valuable. So I think if you're asking yourself, that sounds great, Erin and Pam, I would love a workflow, but either I have never done this before or my projects are very diverse. I would argue that you probably, as Pam told me once upon a time, there are some commonalities. You usually probably have a quick call to get started, especially if you're a service-based business owner. You usually then book them, and then you send out a proposal or an invoice and accept payment. So that's another part of your process. Even if that's not part of your sales, like what you're promoting to people, that's still something valuable. Then you're talking about doing the work. What is the work? What are the deliverables? How do you do the thing? How do you accept changes, input, feedback, etc.? How do you hand it off for them to go take it and run with it? What are the next steps? How do you follow up after it's done? How do you get final payment? How are all of these things interchangeable? Or how do they shift? And what are some of the variables? And you don't need to think about 42,000 different permutations, but the idea is to think of commonalities.
Yeah.
And
even thinking about what happens when you don't get paid. How do you handle that? And one of the benefits of doing all of these things on the front end is that you're thinking about them before they happen without the personalities involved, which can sometimes make things more difficult, because asking someone to pay you, for example, or responding to certain types of questions should sometimes be standard in your business for the most part, and sometimes get personal and complex. But if you systematize them, it takes that out of the equation.
It takes the drama, and you're like, hey, this is my process. And then you can even be like, look, I can make an exception and waive this, of course, this time, but don't let word get out. And then it really gives you the space to create that goodwill and those warm fuzzies, whether or not you're feeling them yourself, but just it gives you some permission to do that. And one of the things you mentioned, and I kind of want to go back to, is you're like, this can be manual, it can be automated, or it can be both, like a hybrid of the two. And there's some software out there that'll allow you to kick out some automatic responding emails. And then it'll, like I use Dubsado and I know you do too. And you can say, wait till I approve this. And then you can go in and fill in the blanks to this canned email. And then you click approve and away it sends. But I think the other benefit that we haven't talked about here is it allows you to scale. Because when you've got a system, you see what you're doing, where you're spending your time, and then you can slowly start to replace yourself in different aspects. And so all of a sudden, this business that you've created is running like clockwork, and you can step further and further out of it. And not completely. No one ever wants to be completely out of it unless they're selling it. But because you've figured it out and you've got all of these things down to a science, that allows you to take on greater capacity and to retain some of your mental health, which is
absolutely
insanely, like, mental health, insanely valuable. There's a dichotomy there, but right? I mean, it's important.
Well, and one of the things that you do is help people with lead magnets and email automations. And when you think about that, like, you want to give people a lot of value, but you don't necessarily want to reinvent the wheel every time to do so. So, sometimes it's saying, okay, I know the 10 steps that you need to take every single day to run a Facebook community. And I'm going to give you a lead magnet, which is a course over the next 10 days to teach you one step a day. You can record videos and create content and then use a tool for email marketing to drip out that content in the way that works for your course. And all someone has to do is give their email address and say, oh, I want that. And you're nurturing that relationship and providing that value and giving them the communication that they want without you having to redo that same thing every single time. It's the same conversation.
Well, and there's two systems there. One, you're giving away your proprietary system, which whether it's proprietary or whether it's just the best practices that you've developed that maybe a lot of people are doing, but it has worked really well for you and it has your unique spin.
Right.
And so that's marketable in and of itself, but also you're systematizing the way you spread the message and build your list. So
exactly.
I think it's all super valuable. So yeah, I mean,
so the question is like, where do you start really, when you're doing this, and how do you not get overwhelmed? Because everything is a system at some point. It really is. And it's
getting out of bed is a system, brushing your teeth. I mean, it's whether it's a ritual, whether it's a system.
What you're doing. So for example, you can there's whiteboard apps. You can use a piece of paper. You can type something in a Word document or Google document. I personally like Post-its. A lot of times I do a big brain dump and then I create like this massive flow chart of what I do each day for whatever it is that I'm working on. And then I start to refine it and tweak it until it gets really clear to me that this process is working and I want to repeat it. So
I think, keeping it, I mean, it's good to have all those permutations out there and all of the details, but it simplifies usually. And if you start, maybe it's like, I get up, I brush my teeth, I go to work. Probably you're getting dressed in there at some point. Maybe not if you get home. Maybe there's a workout, maybe there's a shower, but all of a sudden that's like simplifies to getting up and getting going. And as some of these processes become ingrained, and you still want to spell them out, I think, for when you're ready to hand them off to someone. Although someone obviously can't take a shower for you. Wouldn't that be nice if someone could sleep for you?
Yeah, it'd be great. It's sort of like when you're studying for a test and you have a whole textbook of information and you create this massive outline that becomes one page at the end, because the one page is all you need to make sure you're checking things off your list. But the massive textbook is what you need when you delegate. And so when you're creating your systems, you're doing it for yourself to make sure you're getting things done. But then you're also doing it so that when you hire a team and you delegate something, you can give them whatever version, whatever expanded or contracted version they need to implement it on your behalf. So it helps you with delegating and not just automating. And what I recommend when you go from the document drawing Post-it app phase where you're putting it all out there, you use that till you tweak it and refine it and have enough information to then make it beautiful and something you could share with someone else, like what we're describing.
And then that's the source of the emails is
exactly.
Of course, if you've refined this thing into 5 steps or 5 chunks, then all of a sudden it's like, well, cool, you're still going to have to break that down for people. So that's where the email comes in handy, or the video, or whatever it is that you're doing. However you're dripping out this content, you can go into as much detail or as little detail as you want.
Right. Like if we go back to the selling candles example, it might just be customer buys product, we ship product, we track to make sure it's received, we follow up for feedback. But there could be 10 steps under each one. Mm-hmm. The point is that you know what's going on, and those things that can be put into a tool to automate are done. So it's really easy. Maybe you have a scanning device where you scan everything somebody's ordered and it creates the shipping label for you, instead of you having to every time look in a book for what it costs, calculate the price, even creating like a price list with your profit. That becomes a system. And I think what's important is that you revisit them quarterly. I think I say this every episode, no matter what we're talking about, but it's important that once a quarter, you have a system in place to re-look at your system so that you make sure they're up to date. And you just refresh your memory and refine them, because sometimes you could find a new tool that you can automate with, or you onboard a new team member who brings in expertise to make something better, or you're delegating it.
Or maybe you realize that, hey, actually, I found a way to simplify this. I don't do it this way anymore, because you don't look back at your SOPs every time.
No.
It's not something you do. And then it's like, oh, hey, or you can spell out with a little bit more detail stuff that you've learned along the way.
Or you've added a new service and you didn't create a system for it. Right now I'm going through pretty much most of the things that I do, and I'm keeping the notes and revisiting my systems so that I can refine them. And I'm eliminating a lot of things that I no longer do. I'm refining many of the things that I do, and I'm creating it very streamlined and succinct so that if I need to delegate something, I can. We just talked about contingency plans. They're all based on what we're talking about here, workflows and systems. And when you have efficient and effective plans for how you run your business and how you deliver your products and services, what it helps you do is work smarter, not harder. And that's a question I get all the time. How do I work smarter, not harder? How do I work less and make more? It's with systems, and it's how you scale, as Erin said.
And then once you have that, it's much easier to come to someone like me who's like, okay, tell me about your process. Tell me about what you do. Tell me about what makes you unique. Tell me about your proven process. And you've got it down and you know it. And all of a sudden, you can tell me, and then I can put a spin on it that adds the voice. But it's so much easier if you already have a real solid feel. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Not every process, not every project or piece or whatever this is that you're doing has to follow this exactly. But if you can talk in general themes, then that just makes you appear, as you've said before, that much more professional. And it helps me speak to what you do, because, and I think that's one of my common things is I can write anything, but it's hard to make stuff up.
Well, so you measure success. So like when you work with someone like Erin and she helps you create web copy with maybe a lead magnet and email automation through a project, when you have the system for how you deliver it, you can then see your click rates, your open rates, and then you can look at it and refine and say, you know what, Erin, these 3 emails are really performing well and I'm getting sales, but these 2 seem to be much lower. So when you put things in place and you have a methodical way to look at it,
and then we can examine why that is. We can sit down and we can say, is it the subject line? Is it the timing? Is it the message? Because the biggest secret of marketing is that it's there are best practices, and they're best practices for a reason. But it's constantly evolving with what works better, what maybe isn't working as well this month or this season or this year, but maybe could pick back up again, because there's any number of outside things. Like all of a sudden people want to go outside and they're not checking their email because they can finally be around people again, or so that these are all things. Anyway, we're good. That's a different topic, and I think that's probably another podcast episode.
Probably
for the trial and error of marketing. So I think,
but the last point that I want to make is that you can keep it very simple to start. I know we've given you all these permutations, all these ideas. Keep it simple. Get an idea of what you're doing over and over again. Document it, tweak it, adjust from there. And that's when you can determine, what can I automate so that it's totally hands off? What can I delegate so that it's hands off beyond managing someone? What can I eliminate? And then how can I reuse that time that I've now found to either do something more that I enjoy in my business that's using my zone of genius, or not even work at all and like take a nap, go for a walk, or bake some cookies, like whatever it is. And that is the value, in my opinion, of investing the time to develop the systems that you need.
So, and my question to everyone is where are your systems? What kinds of systems do you have? What kinds of systems do you need? And of course, if you already have them, and you're watching this on replay, hit replay. Let us know your feedback in the comments. We'll be constantly checking in to see what you have to say. But on top of that, if you need help getting clarity, both Pam and I offer strategy sessions, whether you have it down and you just need, that's my least favorite word, just, because it's never just or simple. But if you have it down and you have your system and you need it translated to web copy, we can book a strategy session. If you need help building your system, Pam is incredible, or you can work with both of us together if you want. And another great place to do it, if you just aren't sitting down, you're like, I know what I need to do, I just haven't sat down to do it, is Pam's new community, The Zone, which is a great opportunity to have that focused time and that accountability to work on your business. Whether it's your business, whether it's client work, whether it's your system, whatever it is, it's a great space and time to do that kind of thing for yourself.
Yes. And, I'm just sitting here thinking about all of these systems and all of the stuff we've been talking about in community. And it makes me realize that some people get very overwhelmed, and we don't want to do that. So don't don't get stressed. We can help you. But sometimes things do trigger you to ask yourself, should I just get a job? Because when I have a job, the systems are all there. I just have to execute it in theory, depending what your role is. So
and then you can get done what you get done in a day, and there's that opportunity to step back, and it's appealing if you've been realizing that the buck stops with you and you have to get it done if you say you're going to get it done. There's something to be said.
So I want to know what you think about that. And we're going to put a poll out there between now and our next podcast to get your insight on kind of what triggers you as an entrepreneur to have that thought every now and again of, should I just get a job? I want to know what it is. And we're going to talk about that topic because there's no wrong answer. There isn't. It depends on what's right for you. But we're going to share our thoughts and give you some tips for how to really navigate that when it pops up, to know if the answer is yes or no or maybe. And we'll save that for next week.
Sounds great. Well, thank you everyone for popping in. And as always, if you have questions or want to see what a conversation would look like, just send us an email, hi@thezonecommunity.com.
Yeah, thanks for popping in.
Thank you.